I recreated SHABOOZEY's A Bar Song in my DAW, so let's take a listen.
My good lord, someone pour me up a double shot of whiskey. Hit on me and Jack Daniel's got a history. There's a party down.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Make the Music, and I recreated what is sort of the song of the summer, a hit, SHABOOZEY's A Bar Song, Tipsy, and I recreated that in my DAW using common use tools and just my own intuition. And so I'm going to get into it here and break down how I recreated the track in my DAW, showing you don't need fancy, expensive production to recreate songs or get good sounding tracks in your home studio. So if you're looking for additional tools, I have something called the Home Studio Tool Guide, which gives you a bunch of free resources like plugins, samples, all sorts of stuff if you want to create amazing sounding music in your home studio as well. Anyways, let me get into the session. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you like these kinds of videos, and let's break down the song. Okay, so I'm in my session now. There's a whole bunch of tracks. There's a lot to this track. This is a very fun, diverse track. There's some country, there's some hip hop, there's some indie rock influences, whole bunch of stuff to go over. Let me look at the mixer. Let's look at our master here to start off with. I'm using 5 different plugins. First off, we've got the virtual mix rack. I'm just doing a little bit of virtual mix bus, a little bit of custom lift, nothing too crazy there. I really like to be as subtle as possible on the mix bus. Sometimes I need some heavy-handed moves, but I like to keep it subtle if possible. A little bit of re-EQ, just adding like some thickness in the low end and some sub information I thought was missing when I A-B'd it to the original track. I'm using the SSL compressor. The compressor limiter settings were probably the toughest part of this track because one of the kick drum stomp tracks actually kind of clips the whole mix. So it's a very interesting way. So I have to use these compressors. I'm using the SSL compressor here, using the L1 limiter, and then the FGX2 to bring it up to volume, but to also catch some of these really over-the-top transients that we get on some of these stomp tracks. So if I have the plugin running here in the chorus,
Double shot of whiskey. Hit on me and Jack Daniel's got a history. There's a party downtown near 5th Street. Everybody.
so you can see that master chain is just sort of like reeling everything in, keeping everything glued together, and that's what the purpose and intent of it is. So that's the master bus chain there. Let's get into the drum tracks. I have it separated into 2 different things. There's drums and percussion. So in terms of actual raw drums, I used Easy Drummer 3. The kit wasn't really that important. It was just like an indie dry kit. There's just a little snare roll and a little kick and tom sound. So I have that drum stem. I have a crash playing just like on the ones of choruses and things like that. So that's also running in the track. And I have a tambourine and shaker panned right and left just to add some movement to the track. I could definitely tell there was a tambourine for sure. So I have that all going on here. I had no plugins on any of that. I got the sounds I wanted in Easy Drummer 3 and Superior Drummer 3, and I just rolled with them. Now let's go to the percussion. There's a lot here. I had this 808 track as a part of the percussion actually. And so I'll open up and show you what that looks like. There is a small 808 being hit on some of the ones of these choruses. It's tough to tell, but if you watch the breakdown that SHABOOZEY does of his own song, he mentions an 808. So it's in there. I'm using the humble 808 sample. Just hitting an F sharp note on the ones of those choruses. Now I have a whole bunch of stomp and clap tracks that make up the rest of this session here. So I have a dragon stomp sample that's really wide. I'm using on this stomp and kick the KHS stereo to make it sound like it's more of a stereo in a room sound. I have the width increased by about almost 200%, so quite a bit. So the stereo makes it just even wider. Same thing with this kick track. Just a little bit of subtlety there. That dragon kick is all the way back in the verse too. But it's volume automated down a little bit. Then I'm using Easy Drummer 3 stomp samples that they have included in the software. I panned them right and left to give it a stereo feel like it was live in the room. And then I use a variety of claps from Easy Drummer 3 to help fill out the rest of the sort of clap arrangement here. So there's a couple main dry claps during the verse part. Then it kind of ramps up and gets louder in the chorus. So all that kind of comes together to create this sound with the drums and percussion. Then for the percussion, I have stock EQ. I'm adding some top end to all the claps, all the stomps, help kind of brighten it up. And then compressor to rein it all in for all these like aggressive stomp tracks. You see it's doing about 2 dB of gain reduction to keep it from getting way too clippy there and saturating the entire mix. So that's what I've got going on percussion wise. Then I've got some bass elements here. I have a live track bass that I did. I used the overloud amp sim here, just bass face to get a live bass sound. It's not that loud in the mix. Just playing the main line. Then I'm using a plugin here. It's actually a free bass guitar plugin that's included in my home studio toolbox. And I use MIDI to program that. And then I have a bass synth here. So the combination of all these just gave a nice fat round bass sound. And I'm using an EQ and limiter. The EQ was taking out a lot of like highs and mids that needed to be and have room for everything else. So everything else had somewhere to live, and the low end just kind of lives in the sub here. Now I'm using a limiter to reel it all in. So the bass and all the percussion layers sound like this. So that's what that's sounding like there. Now we get to our electric guitars, which there are about 3 tracks in it. There's a little lead part, and I can definitely tell there's some chorusy sort of rhythm parts as well. So especially during this part here in the verses, a little part that plays on the right. A lot of it was in the playing, making sure I got the feel right, but I'm using just some of the clean guitar presets that we've got in Overloud, just adding some reverb and delay to make it sound correct. And I'm using the same presets on the lead and center guitar. Added a little chorus, and they're just playing some chords with some different voicings. Making sure they fit with the acoustics, which I'll get to in a second. I just used some stock EQ, taking out some highs and lows that it didn't need to occupy those frequencies. We already got enough going on in vocals and stomps and subs. It's a lot. So sometimes you have to use some aggressive EQing in your track if you want to get everything to fit together in such a dense track. So those are the electric guitars. Let's get to the acoustics now. I have a main right and left, which is what shows up in the intro. It sounded nothing like that when I tracked it, so here's all the plugins off. So I'm using a couple different things here. I'm using Joey Sturgis Tone Forge DI Match, and what this plugin does is it allows you to take the input of a sound and then match it. It's essentially EQ matching. And what I did here is actually match the acoustic guitar sound from the intro of the original song and then put it on my acoustic guitar to get them to have the same feel. Mine was much thinner, had more mid-range, but I used the Tone Forge DI Match to match it completely to the original track. I came up with some stock EQ, taking out some more low end and some mid-range, and then Virtual Mix Rack just to compress the tracks, add some shimmer to the acoustics. And then I have additional acoustic layers. There's a lot going on in this track. I have what are called build acoustics. They're just extra strums during those, like 1, here comes the 2 and the 3 and the 4, right during the verse part. And they immediately cut out. I'm using the same plugin chain as well for both of those. Tone Forge DI Match, Virtual Mix Rack. I didn't add the extra EQ though. Then I have extra strums on the right and left. I'm just strumming the initial chords and letting them ring out. That's just for extra texture with my 6-string. And then I came in with 12 strings, played the chord parts, panned them right and left to add even more texture to the entire track. So all the acoustics sound like this together. Gives the track a lot of movement during those sections there.
Good Lord, someone pour me up a double shot of whiskey. They know me and Jack Daniels got a history. There's a
So it's about properly producing sounds, miking them up correctly, and then adding the appropriate layers to get the feel. Now we've got all the strings. There's a whistle sound in the intro. I used a free plugin called The Shepherd, which I found on VST for free. That's also in my home studio toolbox there. It's not the perfect sound, but I can't whistle at all, so it's better than nothing. Works in the intro, in my opinion. So if you're looking for a whistle sound, check that out. And I have a couple pads. They're just organs. A dirty 70s organ. And then a second pad here I'm using, I think it's just another organ. Big Piz strings. Just to add some accents on the downbeats. Then I think they use a fiddle on the original track. I end up using a couple of violin virtual plugins. This one's called Expand. Added some top end to it. I think it's just a solo violin preset. And then I also use the Visco 2 Orchestra by Big Cat. This is a really good free plugin, which I use on the violin presets. Added some EQ to that as well. So the first one, the Expand one, sounds like this. That one has some texture. That one had more attack. So together, it kind of gave a real vibe and feel to the string part. So they all sound like this together. And I added no processing to it. It sounded good. Lastly, there's a choir that kind of comes in during the second half of the chorus. It's just a fake choir to fit in there. Now let's get to the vocal track. It's something very different for me. I never tracked vocals like this, so I did my best. He's an incredible singer, incredible performer, and I did my best to match it and give sort of a similar vibe and feel on the song itself. So the lead vocal, it sounds like this.
My baby want a Birkin. She's been telling me all night long. Gasoline and groceries. The list goes on and on.
So a lot of the time on these lines, we get these low octaves coming in on these doubles here.
She's been telling me all night long.
On a lot of these lines.
And take 'em when I'm gone.
So that's what I've got going on in production wise for like the main vocal. But in terms of plugins, I'm using Metatune. Obviously, hip hop inspired vocals, it's going to be heavily tuned, and I was okay with that. It's just set to A major, a little widening on the main vocal, pretty fast speed and attack on the tuning. So like if I take it off here, you're going to notice a big difference.
My baby want a Birkin. She's been telling me all night long.
Vocal performance isn't that bad pitch-wise, but of course the tuning's really going to reel it in.
My baby want a Birkin. She's been telling me all night long.
So I've got tuning on all the vocals there. And then on the main vocal bus, I've got quite a few plugins. I wanted to feel aggressive, but need to feel clean and expensive like a pop vocal. So I use the U87 plugin. It sounds good on my voice. My voice is very bright and can get too nasally sometimes. So I really like to have a mic emulation that kind of rounds it out. Then I add some EQ here, cutting out some lows, adding some highs. Went in with Reaper stock EQ, added a ton of like high highs while cutting out mid-range, or else it was just too, my voice just tends to be too mid-range front, and that's not what his vocals sound like, so I needed to do that. I come in with a stock compressor.
My baby want a Birkin.
So it's doing about 7 dB of gain reduction in the chorus, maybe a little
Someone pour me up a double shot of...
Especially when more vocals come in, since that whole bus is going there. I'm de-essing with the Reaper stock de-esser. Limiting hard to keep the vocal really pinned.
Someone pour me up a double shot of whiskey. They know me and Jack Daniels got a history.
Using Valhalla Supermassive Reverb to add an ambience to it. Fresh air doesn't look like it's doing anything actually. It's just on the track. And some more stock EQ, just taking out a little lows and a little mid-range just at the very end.
Someone pour me up a double shot of whiskey. They know me and Jack Daniels got a history. There's a part.
So everything went to that vocal bus there. and there's some automation on it as well. So I had some volume automation. Pretty self-explanatory. It was a little lower during the verse parts when there wasn't that many instruments, and then it just slowly increased as we got into the chorus there, building with the rest of the track. Now I have these like gang background vocals. They're all going to this bus, which is basically the same bus as that I used on the lead vocal. So I've got some re-EQ here, doing all the same similar things. For the reverb, I actually use CLA Epic though. So I use CLA Epic Stereo to create a live room sound.
Pour me up a double shot of whiskey. They know me and Jack Daniels got a hitch.
When I do gain vocals, a little hidden trick I have, if you are just one vocalist, you can't actually record a group of people, is use a bit of distortion, back away from the mic. So I actually backed away like 3 feet from the mic. I use a little bit of distortion and something like CLA Epic to create a room sound. And it does a good job at emulating a crowd of people singing something. Another tip is you want to sing some of the background vocals in pitch, like these here.
Pour me up a double shot of whiskey. They know me and Jack Daniels got a history.
So I did that with a bunch of them, but then a bunch of them, I shouted them and tried not to be on pitch. And it's that mix of people who can and can't sing is what creates that sort of bar crowd feeling.
Everybody at the bar getting tipsy.
So I tried to not sing on tune, and that creates this sort of gang.
Everybody at the bar getting tipsy.
And it works with the main vocal. I also have 2 tracks, which were just talking tracks where I'm just like shouting and hollering, giving it a live feel. It sounds super silly on their own, but working together with the main vocal, it creates this.
Good Lord, someone pour me up a double shot of whiskey. They know me and Jack Daniels got a history. There's a party downtown near 5th Street. Everybody at the bar getting tipsy. Everybody at the bar getting tipsy.
So in my opinion, that all kind of works together. So that is my breakdown of a bar song, Tipsy by SHABOOZEY. An infectious track, if I'm being honest. I really enjoyed recreating this one. Let's do a full playthrough of the track. Like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in a comment, how well did I do on this one? Are there any other tracks you'd like me to try and recreate? I usually do rock, metal, pop, but this is more like country influence hip hop. It was a lot of fun to kind of break out and do something different. Also pick up my home studio toolbox in the description down below. That's 100% free. That's got a bunch of tools that I even used in this session itself. So go ahead and pick that up. Let's do a full playthrough of the track, and I will see you guys next time.
My baby want a bucket. She's been telling me all night long. Gasoline and groceries, the list goes on and on. This 9 to 5 ain't working. Why the hell do I work so hard? Can't worry about my problems. I can't take them when I'm gone. 1, here comes the 2 to the 3 to the 4. Tell her bring another out, we need plenty more. 2 stepping on the table, she don't need a dance floor. Oh my, good Lord. Someone pour me up a double shot of whiskey. They know me and Jack Daniels got a history. There's a party downtown near 5th Street. Everybody at the bar